What one word captures what Dan said? Apart from freedom. Why do you do your jobs? Because we care. Emergency services people care. Doesn't matter if it's policemen, ambulance men and women, nurses, doctors, teachers, aged care, NDIS, pathology, there you go. Everyone cares, and it really comes through. These policemen here, they care. And they're, by the way, they're saying, keep going. But I just want to reassure you, that's my main objective today. First of all, let's recognise that there are people here who are never going to get injected. I'm one of them. And there are many here. But I don't get penalised in Parliament. You do, because you're not in Parliament. But you elect the representatives who will represent you in Parliament. That's what we need to remember. That's the first thing. The second thing is there are lots of people who have been voluntarily injected. Some want it. That's their choice. I'm fine with that. And then there are many people, and they support us here, who have been injected against their will. So we might be getting hammered, mate, but they are getting doubly hammered. And now their kids are staring down the gun barrel. So we've all heard about the emergency services people who were heroes just 12 months ago and are now villains. We know that, well, last time when we got here, Dan and I went up to the security and said, could we see Anastasia Palaszczuk, the health minister? They said, they will come down. No one came down. The Premier is not here today, but I wrote a letter last time requesting a meeting with emergency services people and the Premier. I got a reply, one of few replies from Premier. She didn't mention anything about a meeting. Not a thing.
Did she mention anything about integrity?
No. Well, we're coming to that. The next thing I want to reassure you with is that we will continue to support you, Pauline and I. We will continue to support you. We will oppose all government legislation in the federal parliament until freedom is restored. And I want to acknowledge and support and admire Jared Rennick, George Christensen, Craig Kelly, Alex Antic for backing us. They cop a lot of flack, but they're backing us. And they're doing it on their own within a party. The next thing I want to mention is exactly what this gentleman here said. Your dad, Elena, you've done a good job, mate. This issue highlights the corruption. The state government is now beset with accusations of corruption. As a senator in federal parliament, Pauline and I tried to negotiate an inquiry into the misuse of federal funding after disasters in this state. The Labor Party opposed it. The Greens opposed it. We had an agreement with the government that they would support it, and I'd be chair of it. And then we'd dive into the misuse of these federal funds. And at the last minute, I believe the government was honest on this occasion, but at the last minute, two Queensland senators, Matt Canavan and James McGrath, threatened to cross the floor and vote against the government, so the government caved and voted against the inquiry into the misuse of taxpayers' money. This is another abuse of taxpayer money. They're transferring $8.3 billion out of our pockets as taxpayers to Big Pharma. That's all it's about, apart from control. It's about money and control. And what we've got to remember is all the instances of hypocrisy in the last 2 years. The instances of contradicting the facts. The instances of policies and mandates that are not based in fact and go against fact. We've got to remember all the lies. We've got to remember the corruption. We've got to remember who's getting the money and who's getting control. This is not about controlling a virus. If they wanted to do that, they could have allowed ivermectin to continue to be used. They could have used proper testing, tracing, quarantine like Taiwan's done and the best in the world. But there is no pandemic of deaths. This is about coercion and control. And it's about money for big companies. So what we need to do is Everyone here, including me, is responsible for this because we have voted either Liberal or Labor forever. They take us for granted. And parliaments these days do not hold governments accountable. They don't serve the people. They work for the parties and their power brokers and their major sponsors and donors.
Vote the bastards out.
So who changes that? We do. Who changes it? We do. So when you vote in the next election, state or federal, think about that. Put the majors last, put the minor parties first. You know which one I'd prefer, but you vote according to what you think. And you allocate preferences according to what you think. Don't believe the bullshit from the major parties. They do not allocate preferences. You do. When you get a how to vote card, identify the parties, then screw it up and put the parties where you want. But above all, vote for strength of character in candidates, policies, and values. So I just remind you of that. And I want to congratulate Matt here because he's come up with a little flyer, www.standupandvote.com.au. It's about educating people on how to vote. There he is there. One last thing. For those of you who think this is the end game, no, it is not. My office stopped the cash ban bill with the help of Pauline Hanson, and we eventually converted even the dopes in the Labor Party in federal parliament and the Greens and the minor parties and the independents to vote against the cash ban bill. We kept cash. Cash is extremely important because the moment you haven't got an option for cash, they control every transaction that you enter into, everything. So we squashed the cash ban bill. We also are on top, we're not on top at all about this COVID bill, but we've got the issues in the public and people know. The real end game here is the digital identity bill. And, oh, I'm so pleased to hear people understand it. That is the real game. They will control everything you do. That's what they're using it for. We're fighting it now. We've got a series of 7 videos coming out. The first one went out yesterday. Please watch them and educate yourselves about that. That is the end game, to control your life, control your life, control your life. That's all they want. Every single electronic transaction, all your medical data gets fed into a corporation and sold overseas. And then if you want your medical data, you pay for it to get it. That's the way this federal government is going, and Albanese backs it. So just be mindful of that. This is extremely important. In 20 years' time, your kids and grandkids will look back and say, thank you very much for having the courage to stand up because, like this fella and this lady, we care. We all care. Thank you. Over to you. Over to you.